everyone, welcome to an invigorating conversation on generative AI in HR, a new chapter in HR innovation, carefully crafted by the Economic Times HR World and HONO. Today, I have the absolute privilege of hosting power voices from across the industries. Joining me are Simin Askari, Senior Vice President, Corporate Human Resources and Business Excellence DS Group, Sheetal Sandhu, Group CHRO, ICRA, and Rajesh Padmanabhan, Chairman, Advisory Board and Head Western India, HONO. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us at ET Studios. We are very pleased to have you on board with us and unraveling an exciting conversation today. Of course, we are catching up for one pertinent thing that is affecting all of us today: how AI is disrupting HR and the functions, and what's coming up next for us. On that note, I'm going to straight away delve deep into this conversation. And Simin, I'm going to start with you first. So Simin, if I may start with you, the digital landscape evolves. Organizations are increasingly turning into generative AI to kind of revolutionize their HR practices and all the other allied functions. Now, the big question that arises right now is, what are these major trends and opportunities emerging in HR due to the influx of generative AI? And how can they really prepare to capitalize the best out of them?
So thank you so much, Soumya. Very interesting topic and an interesting question. I think the way generative AI has kind of barged into this world of ours, there is an immense opportunity that is there for the organizations to enhance the way the employee experiences its journey throughout the period that they are within the organization. There are several HR trends that are, I think picking up. Some of them, of course, with the advent of AI into the HR functions, and some now because of generative AI. So starting from the period when a person is a prospective candidate, not really a an employee itself, till the time a person comes in, joins in and exits, there's a lot that is happening into the world of HR, into the function, and generative AI is definitely making it more exciting. So take an example of the way we used to draft job descriptions. Yeah. Things have become, I would say, exciting now that you can have very personalized kind of job descriptions for an employee, for a job role. The way an employee comes on board, the whole onboarding experience has undergone a tremendous change because of Gen AI. It's become more personalized. The entire learning and development piece, when you come in and then the talent is, we do talent management in the HR function, that itself has been affected by the way generative AI has helped. I think the performance management has sort of evolved tremendously, and generative AI is really supporting that a lot. So a lot of trends, I would say, right from the time a person comes in till the time a person exits, generative AI is now helping HR professionals to enhance their employee experience and make it more effective and customized and personalized.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Simin. So Rajesh, I'm going to come to you. Very beautifully crafted by Simin that as soon as the employee enters a workplace and as they exit, generative AI is there. It's pervading deep now with a lot of effects. What is something that you would like to add here?
Sure, I'm going to cut this into maybe two parts. Since I consult a lot with clients, and I'll particularly talk about trends that's emerging. Not that all of them are perfected right now, but they're clearly visible and the asks are coming a little more visibly. One is I'm going to take a plunge at analytics. And the second one is I'm going to take a plunge at advanced analytics, which creates more of business impacts. Those are possibly matured at about 25-30% right now, but they could become really big. So let me go on the first one. The first one is all about the life cycle HR part of it. So Simin did allude to a lot of parts in terms of efficiencies, the effectiveness parts of it. But more importantly, the relevance of moving and shifting it from qualitative to quantitative aspects of the life cycle. For example, one of the stuff which is really trending is enterprises which do a lot of bulk hiring. Yeah. How could we improve show rates? And what does show rates mean? I mean, I release X number of offers. I'm not sure, how many are really going to show up. Now, that has a massive impact as far as the entire enterprise, the business is concerned. So, those kind of stuff, I would still put that as basic. Then, flight risk, which is always a stuff. You don't know how long people are going to stay with you. And that unpredictability, if you're able to convert with a reasonable amount of probability to say, what's the life cycle involved, I guess that's a lot of value add. And the third one is, anything that you possibly do with respect to merging the entire talent space, combined with the internal talent management, along with the external talent that's available. That fusion is also adding a lot of value. I would still put this under basic analytics. These are not advanced. The advanced analytics, which I was alluding to, which I was mentioned before, are the stuff which is direct impact on P&Ls. Okay. Now, how does this work? The aspect of how can I touch EBITDA, or how can I touch growth part of it? For example, the entire workforce planning is a multivariable model, but there are lots of stuff that can be drawn out of generative AI. And why do I say this? Because these are not just internal parameters which you conventionally do. You need to depend upon a lot of availability of skills, the predictability of them, staying with you, the predictability of them really joining you. So those aspects are really complex. Yeah, I'm actually working on an assignment with one of the clients right now to populate and shift the entire costs of people through experience density. Not that I've done that before, but I'm writing the algo and trying it out. So I think these are some of the trends that I see. I think they're looking small today, but they may catch up.
Fantastic. I think that is so good to know, Rajesh, that you're doing so much around this. And I really like how you've plugged in the business side to it. I think this is one of the paradoxes that a lot of leaders, a lot of organizations have tried to solve and kind of intertwine the HR and the business side. Right? We say that HR is no longer a silo function. It is pretty much a business function now. So thank you for just kind of summing it up so beautifully for us. That brings me to a follow-up question. And Rajesh, of course, I'm going to start with you on this. That how can enterprise leverage the power of generative AI to make more informed decisions, like you said? What can be like the do's and the don'ts for the leaders and the viewers who are going to watch us today? And second of all, that if I'm going to talk about maintaining the human touch, that is one of the conversations that have again really stood by us. So how do you do this tedious job, or I would say a very difficult job, but keeping a balance of it? So
great question, and thank you so much. I'm going to start with two quotes. The first is, don't force fit into Gen AI. Yeah, I think that's something which one has to realize. Just because the whole world is doing, you end up doing without even knowing what it's all about. I think you're barking up the wrong tree. That's number one. Second is, I think what we need to understand is Gen AI helps you define the rule. It doesn't help you manage the exception, which is where the human being come in. So where you need to be rule driven, where you need to be driven, where you need to have a pattern, a model, an architecture, a defined kind of a workflow, I guess Gen AI brings the how part of it. The what part of it, which actually gets defined, gets a little easily automated through Gen AI, which is the how part of it. But if you get to the how of the how, and which is where the rationale of a lot of things that we do on a daily basis, and let me back it up with a few examples. Hiring. We all know the amount of work that Gen AI does in the space of hiring, whether it is sourcing or screening or even basic interviewing, or a lot of stuff in terms of even VR and AR that's come into play. So all of them really helps you, undoubtedly. But it's still the ability of intuitively backing the person for a role. That's the human element. So in every single life cycle, there's the element of fairness, there's an element of judgment, there's an element of emotion that comes in. This is where I say that the exception is always managed by the human being and not by AI. AI will help you manage the rule. So every single area, even in the space of talent, we end up backing people. Just come to think of it, even in this high-tech digital world, we take a lot of bet on people, right? At the end of the day, it's the people predictability which gets converted to a human intelligence and which gets converted to an AI, which eventually formulates all of this. And in a people function like this, I'm not saying that it's not going to be displaced, but this 80-20 principle is something that has got to be kept very strongly in mind. And I would imagine, if I were to use a simple analogy, today AIs can fly a plane, but would you sit in that plane? I stop there.
So can I add to
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I completely agree with Rajesh here that AI is going to help enhance the capabilities of an HR professional, but the human touch will always remain. You cannot do away with that. After all, what we are looking at is a lot of analytics that is happening through AI, looking at a lot of data, but again, as what he said, is it relevant to us? That critical thinking is where the human beings have to sort of figure it out. You cannot just apply it because everybody else is doing it. To our context, is it relevant? Yeah. How do we make it relevant? The emotional aspects of it, when you're dealing with people, it cannot be done by machines. So the human touch will always remain, Yeah.
Sheetal, would you like to add?
I think very interesting conversations there, but to the point we are making, Gen AI is pervasive, right? It is everywhere. I mean, we want to live it, we don't want to live it. Ultimately, it will be just like internet, right? It will be like electricity. It is going to be our daily need somehow over few years to come as we embrace it. So the earlier we embrace it, the better. Of course, decisions making, I can't agree more. The business decisions which need to be done, they will be done by humans. For example, humans want to be hired by humans. They don't want to be hired by robots. Yes, there will be a lot of screening, pre-screening. Out of 1,000 CVs, I'll still hire that one person, 10 people. Campus hiring probably has seen an upsurge of how Gen AI can probably play a disruptive. It's disruptive how campuses can be probably managed. So everyone probably need to up their game in this Gen AI space. I think top it up to business decision and strategy. I think I want to call out loud how Gen AI can actually play an important role in the culture piece. And married to that is the D&I piece, right? And we all keep struggling with this idea, and it's very close to the topic, which is very close to my heart also, that we keep talking about it. Every organization has put platforms, forums, right? But how much of this is bringing in effectiveness and real culture shift in the mindset? And that's where the how of Gen AI will help us achieve those outcomes, because the human touch will be in the what and why of actually defining what you are doing, why you are doing. Gen AI probably will, let us know how to do it. But ultimately, the judgments, the decisions, the outcomes will be human driven. And humans are there to stay, of course. So jobs are there to stay. And a lot of positive, I'll say, outlook to the industry. Yeah. Gen AI has probably just disrupted the way we are doing our works a bit differently. So it's pervasive, it's going to stay, it's permanent in my view.
Wow. That's a great sum up, and I really feel that that debate of AI eliminating things for us and now to the verge of we are saying that it's going to augment. I think that is one of the most positive shifts that we have seen as a fraternity, as a function together. So that's good. Rajesh, I really like that caveat of 80-20%. I really like how you've put a number cap on it, that there is a good possibility that's unraveling for you, but the 20% mindfulness will bring in.
I think it's 50-50, Rajesh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so it's 50-50 for us, maybe.
He's a product guy, he will say it. He's very
No, but I'm a quant guy. I'm a hashtag quant HR guy.
Awesome,
So
awesome.
anything and everything gets a number from me. So
Absolutely.
I take a position.
All right.
There is some number crunching that has already happened in the background, I feel.
But I think 80-20 is a stretch.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
definitely is a stretch.
Good.
I love when there's a little discomfort in the panel. We are really coming together on that. That's a beautiful thought. But like I was saying, Rajesh, Sheetal, Simin, that I really like when there are different perspectives being uncovered in a conversation. I like how we're moving from 80-20 to 50-50 now. So there's much more potential in the second half of the conversation. But like I was saying, that we've already talked about the trends that are coming in, what we foresee, how we can prepare better. That also brings us to a very, very important thread that kind of highlights the skills that are needed. I think all the conversation, all the debates in the world today talks about that skills passport. So I would love to cover that bit to you. And, Sheetal, I'm going to start with you now. So as generative AI becomes more integrated into the HR function, what are the top line skills that you would like to highlight for our viewers that they should definitely focus on developing? And the idea here is to stay relevant and effective.
Yes. And I think it's a very important question in the realm of the topic we are discussing today. And I'll take a clue from a previous discussion, because I still believe it's going to be 50% of business skills or analytics or the high-end data-driven stuff, and 50% it's going to be still a lot of human, and most of it is going to be driven by humans. So that said, HR fraternity needs to embrace that a lot ahead of time and prepare the organizations for the future. HR fraternity needs to first, let me first talk about the business part of it, or the hard part, or hard skills there, right? Which is whether it is to do with the business decisions, whether it is the data analytics side, how much are you understanding data? What is your own understanding of the predictive models of, algorithms, and reading them, making them? I'm not asking HR to be coder, but definitely understand some part of the canvas there, so that when you are hiring, when you're talking the same language at least. So upskill yourself in the world of data analytics. The next, in my view, will be job crafting, or let me say job redesigning, because that's the key part of where the HR fraternity needs to come up and start saying, and not which jobs will be redundant, which tasks will be redundant, where will they be mundane, wherever they are repetitive, right? And wherever there is a need to have the emotion-based sentiment analysis, all that Gen AI can help us with, but ultimately decisions have to be towards the human side of the story. Right. Third would be organization designs, right? As we move towards digital world and the digital transformation, organization are actually sitting on the fence of, I'm from financial services industry, and how digital banking is taking a new wave altogether. I think no banker can think of it, say, 20, 30 years back. But today, look at any leading banks and the way they are doing this. Organizations have to be designed differently. They have to be looked differently in terms of not only what job roles, job evaluation, as I said in my previous point, but also to the fact that what will be the structures. I mean, hybrid, yes, of course, but matrix, what type of matrix, right? Will there be one-to-many relationships, and how will they be defined, right? I mean, we can talk about that. But let me move to the soft side of the story, right? Soft skills aren't going to go, right? Empathy. And I think that's still the favorite topic between the Gen I world and the non-Gen I world. I think nothing. And when we move empathy to compassion, I think that's where the next leg of, the HR skill movement will happen. Right now, we are still between empathy, kindness, and, this. But I think we need to be much, much ahead in the curve of kind and compassion there. Stakeholder management, right? There's no brainer there that, while you are making such great CEOs learn the business model, the P&Ls and all that, there's a reason to make them also handle them in a manner that CEOs understand that people question is going to remain, right? And there's going to be a lot of benefit from the culture and the people piece, which will move the organizations much more ahead and keep them relevant in the entire story. Last but not the least is the adaptability and innovation. I think if, as I said at the beginning, if HR is not embracing that ahead of its own organization, in their own organization, probably other functions won't adopt it that easily. So less resistance, more progression. I think that's the way forward. I mean, I can go on this topic, but I'm going to take a pause.
Samya, I just want to add on to what Sheetal just said. So you asked about the skill set that HR professionals need to focus on, and I think from my perspective, at least there are two that come to my mind where it is extremely important. Being surrounded with so much of technology, I think having a digital mindset in the organization is extremely crucial. It's not just bringing in technology, but making sure that there is a digital mindset and people are, openly embracing the effects and the advantage of having that technology around them. And second, as Sheetal said, innovation and having a growth mindset. Again, these are very important. The third, again, which is also coming to my mind, is the critical, thinking aspect. Being bombarded with so much of analytics, data, having that critical thinking and making sure that this is relevant to your organization, making sure that whatever you are adapting to, whatever you're bringing in is relevant to your business scenario. That is what is, extremely important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let me add a few more. I think picked up a lot from what they have said, but let me keep it a little distinct. A few things that has not been covered.
Sure.
Maybe I thought that's important. Data privacy and data governance, I think, is like massive. You can't be not aware of it. I mean, that's something you've got to be really aware and be up to speed, because the amount of crawling that we do on the net, we might as well be very conscious and ensure that it's within the legal and the ethical frameworks. So that's number one. Number two is emotional intelligence. She alluded to empathy. I'm slightly building it a little more. In the first question, I was possibly speaking more out of my mind. I'll balance it with a little of my heart now. I think emotional intelligence. We all realize that work is a subset of life and not the other way around. So it's not balanced work life, it's balanced life work. We all realize that. I think the world is transformed in that particular space. So there the correction does come into play. So the emotional intelligence is something that the HR guys need to really be strong at. So I get a correction now from an 80-20 to whatever it takes. Yeah, I'm not taking a numerical position, but I made a conscious.
Is bigger.
He's agreeing finally.
I have to always agree,
Yeah.
I have to be on the right side of my co-panelists, right?
But that's beautiful, Rajesh, of course.
That's the second one.
Yeah.
The third one is, the analytics part of it. I think both of them did speak in their own stuff, but you don't need to be a tech geek, you don't need to know, but the power of what you can do is still we're scratching the surface. It's humongous actually. Yeah. But don't really, push yourself to, to an extent where you need to know everything. Depend on specialists. Yeah. So I mean, I come from the industry 3 decades and then in the consulting world. I think borrow expertise. I think you don't need to build all capabilities in-house. I think the pressure of the HR guys to really, do I need to know all of this? I think is getting a little too daunting. I guess don't worry about it. There are a lot of specialists out there in the market. Please go and borrow expertise. And the last one is social skills. Yeah, I would still say social, because the HR world actually many a times realizes what's happening in an enterprise. They are the last people to know. The social world possibly knows it ahead of you. So I think the model is so reversed. You need to be really, up there as well. I added 2 more. I think we have more research right now. I wouldn't take a massive position on that, but failure management is becoming massive in this entire stuff, which is like really an uncharted territory. As you really navigate and move in this space, there are a lot of failures that's bound to happen. You shouldn't really, get bogged down. So take it in your stride. It's perfectly fine. That's one. And I'm a believer of not change, but transformation. This is not an era. Change management has become like a it's not a process, it's a basic skill. I think it's a basic skill. Transformation is an advanced skill.
And resilience. I think building resilient organizations, to the last point you are making, I think that's very important. That how do you, come out of the failure and still go to the next level.
Right. So handling complexities, large complexities, never had precedences as this. I think the ability to build that, because HR navigated the entire COVID phase.
Absolutely.
I don't think any one of us knew, right?
Right.
But we did it, right? I mean,
you guys were at the forefront.
We were, yes,
we were in the forefront.
definitely.
So I'm exactly saying, now convert that into a skill. There are going to be like many things that's going to come, which we're never going to be prepared, but having the basic tenacity and the resilience to really make it happen, and some basic structure around it would help, I think.
That kind of really looks like that we've unearthed a secret sauce with this panel. So thank you all of you. I think this sounds very inspirational, if I could say. So loved hearing every anecdote around that. And that really puts me on the last part of the conversation now. And let me just start with you on this, Sheetal, first. That in what ways can generative AI enhance the employee experience and engagement within an organization? So if there's a blueprint sort of a thing that you could share with the viewers, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I think let's start with some examples there,
Yes.
right? Because I'll just deep dive into that, because we're just speaking around what could have been done. So I think I'll start with the entire onboarding experience, right? The personalization and the hyper personalization of bringing an individual on board, I think that creates a lot of difference, and a lot of organizations are trying to make a difference through, as you rightly said, either outsource this, pick up a product, off the shelf product from the market, and see how this entire onboarding experience can be justified. Making them part of the organization on day one, culturally ready, I think is no joke. And how can you do it? You can start a lot early, in terms of when you have done the offer management side, when you have already, and you can pick up clues, for example, where the individual is traveling, where the individual is actually, candidate is going to go for the next I'll say social function, and bring in some flavors from there, and just try to personalize the entire story for the individual. And gone are the days of the bouquets and chocolates going to the individual. I think I know organizations and experience some of them where they send personalized books, right, which an individual reads from a particular author, for example. And I think that creates such a wow for the individual when this entire and he starts to feel that the organization cares. There is a special moment, the value you have brought in. Maybe the other one, and maybe my colleagues can actually, co-panelists can actually touch upon some topics in performance management and training. But again, D&I piece and hiring on the D&I side, and how to ensure that there are less of biases, right, in terms of blind resumes, in terms of biases going out. Because I think one of the failures of Gen I will be how the biases can be tackled, right? And when I say failures of Gen I is the obviously uptick on the human side, and somewhere we need to marry that together. And when you are hiring, the blind resumes, the job descriptions, which are again so personal, personalized to the individual. I can think of a prompt I was reading, that what type of career suits my aspiration was the one question and a candidate has asked. So what job is more suitable to my aspirations? I think, I don't know if my dad could have also answered that, right? But now Gen I is actually answering it. So somewhere there's a lot of what should I say, trust factor. I don't know how much Gen I can bring in that authenticity around it, but at least it gives you enough clues in bringing the diverse workforce, bringing it regionalization, ethnicities, a lot of this. I'm not talking only on gender, right? Gender is one part of the story. The other parts of it, in terms of someone ability on the communication side, for example, how good are you in communicating and picking up those signals, sounds, tonality, everything, right? So hiring side of the story is going to be definitely, I will say it's disruptive there in terms of recruitment. And that leads to the culture and the D&I piece and the sentiment analysis. I mean, chatbots have done the story around how much dipsticks they can bring in, and there are so many products available, off the shelf products available to do those dipsticks. The idea is actually, how can you make use of these dipsticks, right? So do you want to action the decisions, out of those dipstick surveys, what it has brought to the table, right? Anonymity, confidentiality, I mean, real-time pain problem for an individual. I think that's what Gen I is solving us from an employee experience perspective. Last but not the least is the speed and the quality of the HR help desk. I think that side of the story, the shared services piece, automating that entire length and breadth from hire to exit. I think that experience, if it is consistent, standardized, based on at the backdrop of your company values, I think that creates a wow story for the individual. Yeah, but I'll just again stop and maybe.
No, I think that's very moving, if I could say the least. And it sounds very, very positive. But before I kind of try and sum it up, I'm going to bring you, Simin, here. What is something that you would like to add to this?
So, generative AI has the power of enhancing an employee experience in various, facets and with various so Sheetal did touch upon a short, small part of it. But I think where it personally touches a person is, what does an employee want when it comes to an organization? There is a career development, career path which is visible, and he is able to reach that, and there is a growth that he sees within the organization. And second is when he or she is doing well, then they need a pat on the back. So there is instant recognition and the performance enhancement is happening, right? Fortunately for us, and I represent an FMCG, the industry, in our organization, we have experienced AI and now also augmenting it with Gen AI in two areas. One is the learning and development piece, where there are hyper-personalized learning paths, career, aspirational career journeys that are visible to employees. And depending on how a person wants to consume the learning, it sort of throws that. So whether it is in form of modules, short modules, videos, at their own pace, the way they would want, looking at where they want to go in the career, that is where the learning happens, right? And second is when it comes to performance enhancement and performance management. So we are a sales-driven organization and we use AI based nudges for our salespeople, which is really interesting because it is again very personalized. I may be excited by the prospect of earning more incentives. So I get a daily nudge that, hey, this is the kind of selling you've done. If you sell this much more, this is the kind of incentive you would get. Somebody else may be excited about where they are on the leaderboard. Listen, you're on right now on rank 3. If you do this much more, this is where you will become. And believe me, this has really helped us because that has automatically given recognition. If you're doing well, you get a star, you get instant recognition amongst your peers. And if you're not doing, then you're getting a little nudge that, do this. So you're enhancing performance on a daily basis at a real-time basis. So this is how, AI and now Gen AI is sort of helping us improve, obviously, the business aspect of the, as well. And by subtly helping employees as well as improving the employee experience. Yes.
I think, Simin, that's beautiful. And yes, Rajesh, I was bringing you in just on the opening note that this has been like a transformative effect. So how can I not have you to come for this conversation?
No. Yeah, I think a lot of nerve centers have been touched. Yeah, and I'm going to react a lot on my feet. So the first thing is I'm going to construct something which is the 4C. I think there are 4 C's that's touching. I think she spoke about the culture. I think AI is generally, Gen AI is going to touch culture, capabilities, contribution. I say I'm moving from performance to contribution because I'm more stuck on the business impact part of it. And finally, credibility, which is the entire space of, how you're seen, how you're perceived. That's the 4 C's. I'm also going to construct an ABCDE based on what we spoke just now. So the A stands for all, Gen AI is all about accuracy and agility.
Correct.
B is a little interesting. It can bring brevity. It can broad base as well. So, the power of encompassing and really narrowing it down, condensing it, or really, going and exploring the entire
like the uncharted horizons, as you said.
Exactly. So that's the B.
True.
Now the C is clarity. Gen AI provides a lot of how clarity.
Wow.
Communication, I think it's precise. Yeah, it can give you the essence of communication. And it has the power of collaboration. That's the C for me. Now, D is all about delivery and also decision making, enabling decision making. That's the D part of it. And the E is all about efficiency, effectiveness, and the experience. Having said this, I'll give you 2 or 3 examples because now I want to pull it back from a 50-50 to an 80-20, right? So let me, not an 80-20, maybe a 70-30.
Maybe a 70-30.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, for example, I think she spoke about something and which is at a product stage which I'm testing. Just imagine the power of unrealized potential. People come and do what they do and they assume they've come to this world to do what they're doing and they're good at what they're doing. This is something that you're not even aware of. And this unrealized potential is what Gen AI can do. I'm building a product right now, which is at a meta phase right now, which actually can tell you a lot of options based on your skills. What are the other options available? Yeah, so that's the product part of it. Now, go to the other part of it again from a DEI charter. Yeah, we all have been like really come of age where we understand DNI, but it's still periphery. Yeah. We still understand gender, we still understand LGBT, we still understand some bit of mental health, etc., etc., and we're trying to be as inclusive as we can based on UN charters, etc., etc. But do we still understand what is cognitive DNI? Yeah. Now, can it be built? Let me pull it back, maybe 70-30, it can be built. It's tough, not impossible. The new biases of Gen AI in the workplace, for example, people not showing up, people like, on-prem versus like remote functioning, throwing up a lot of biases. And lastly, I think the ability to really convert all of this into experience is also coming from the fact that as I said, I'm building on the first point. I think work is a subset of life. People have got much beyond what they do at work. I think the aspect of that needs to be kept in mind in the entire value chain that we are building. If you're going to look at an employee purely from a work standpoint and the classic engagement models that we were all exposed to over decades, maybe we're still limiting ourselves. We need to slightly extrapolate this and think of life. Not that we will have all the answers, but it's perfectly fine to, look at some of
least
the
it looks like a good path to start.
But Soumya and
Sheetal,
Rajesh,
please.
I couldn't agree more on the last point. I think we just need to transform this being an employee thing at work to something at an employee well-being level. I think we are not talking a lot about well-being, right? And how Gen AI can actually help develop the potential well-being of the employee so that that employee brings the best back to work. And I think it's still, we'll need products and products, 100% products like that, by the way. Yeah. So, and I know a lot of, by the way, use cases there and some meta products in the meta phase also where nudges are being given to look at how the physical well-being, the mental well-being. Did you do your exercise? Did you do your diet right? Did you do, and we can bake it back to the KPIs, employee experience and all. But I think we all need to up the game from that employee engagement story of being at work to the being in well-being officers somewhere. And
a lot of organizations have these moodometers, right? That they kind of tap into their workforce mood right in the morning and in the end. And there's a pattern, there's a dashboard that's right in front of you.
So that's
the
one
engageometer.
That's engageometer, right?
That's
but the
right.
well-being meter will be how well are you physically? Did you exercise? Did you have your diet? There could be nudges, there can be journals, there can be, I'm sure,
No, we're all agreeing to the fact that, I think the shift that I keep saying, is not work-life. If you're still using the word work-life, it's life-work. I think that's number one. And second is, we didn't build on the part of culture, but I have a digital...
There's a huge potential.
I have a digital culture meter, which is like, I've kept the IP, not made it commercial as yet, but still testing. But that's going to be the power. Is the needle moving?
The needle moving.
So I think what we could all of us can sort of agree here is generative AI is going to help HR and augment HR capabilities to provide the right sort of culture, the right sort of tools and platforms so that an employee comes and delivers the best of his or herself in the organization. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that is like a fantastic sum up. So thank you so much, Rajesh, Sheetal, Simin, for joining in. I think it is about time that we move the needle, and I really, really adore this, that culture has stood out. In this madness, in this rat race of putting out a PNL and a EBITDA and a Gantt, we are still talking about culture. There is so much more humane touch to this conversation, and that makes me very, very happy. So thank you so much for sharing in your personal experience, for inspiring us all. And yes, that brings us to the end of this conversation, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Stay tuned for many more awe-inspiring conversations coming from us. Thank you.